Central, with his 74-year-old grandmother, is yet to join senior school due to his family's inability to raise school fees.
Ningependa kuwa engineer, na niko na mandugu zangu wote bado wako shule, hawana uwezo wa kunisaidia.
Anybody yule mwenye ako na uwezo ambaye ameguswa akuje aweze tusaidiana pamoja, huyu kijana aende shule.
However, following a directive earlier today by President William Ruto ordering schools to prioritize admission and remove barriers that could hinder 100% transition,
there is sufficient money for teachers, for our children to be taught in the first term. So every child, wawe na school fees, wasiwe na school fees. Wawe na uniform, wasiwe na uniform. Waende shuleni tomorrow morning.
The Ministry of Education has now directed senior school principals to immediately admit all grade 10 learners placed in the institutions, including those who lack school fees and uniform.
No learner shall be required to pay admission fees for admission to public senior schools. In the same vein, and in line with Section 34, subsection 5 of the Basic Education Act 2013, no child and learner shall be denied admission to a public school.
Meanwhile, the government has flagged off the distribution of 11.8 million grade 10 textbooks ahead of the start of learning in high schools next week. The government has paid 5.6 billion shillings to facilitate the distribution of the books.
There has been questions as to whether learning can really take place without these books, and we had assured the country that as of this Friday, we were going to have at least 40% of the books already distributed to our schools. I'm glad to note that from today, the list that you've shown me, we are already at 50%, therefore ahead of the timetable that we have rolled out.
Speaking separately at Mayonje Secondary School in Malava constituency, Kakamega County, Education Principal Secretary Julius Bitok cautioned parents and guardians who have not yet enrolled their children to senior schools to do so without further delay or risk facing legal action.
Hatutakubali wanafunzi wote ambao wamaliza grade 9 wakae nyumbani. Na tumeambia machiefs wetu, watu wetu wote kila mahali, serikali inahakikisha kwamba kila mwanafunzi amerudi shule. Na kama kuna mwanafunzi yote hajarudi shule, ataona chemcha makundi.
So as teachers, as you receive these students in senior school, guide them appropriately, identify their strength so that they can succeed in the pathway of their choice.
Joseph Wahungu for Prime Edition.
Now, the government has assured Kenyans that it is working round the clock to secure the repatriation of Kenyans caught up in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary, that is Dr. Korir Sing'oei, says that the Kenyan government is negotiating the release of the Kenyans who have been captured by the Ukraine government and held as prisoners of war. Sing'oei at the same time attributed the crisis to illegal recruitment networks targeting vulnerable Kenyans with false promises of employment opportunities abroad. John Kahiro reports.
Lakini aliniambia amepelekwa kwa upande wa vita kule ambako alikuwa ananiambia ni tumuombee kwa sababu sio kuzuri.
Sasa mimi mwenyewe hata huyo ndio mtoto mmoja niko naye na ndio nilikuwa namtegemea kwa kila kitu.
Hata tuliongea na yeye kama analea, anataka rudi. Vile anarudi, ameshindwa vile atarudi.
For months, families across the country have lived in fear and uncertainty, searching for loved ones reportedly caught up in the Russia-Ukraine war. Some left home in search of opportunities, only to find themselves trapped in a conflict.
Wakati tuliongea na yeye, alikuwa ndani huko Ukraine. Ndio alikuwa anafanya kazi. Walikuwa nalala mahali imechimbwa ile ya chini, bunkers. Ndio walichimba wakajenga huko chini ya ardhi.
Wasiwasi wangu ni venye tumesikia huko venye vita inaendelea. Kasi yenye alikuwa ameambiwa anaenda sio anafanya. Hatumpati na simu kama kwa mwezi.
According to Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Dr. Korir Sing'oei, at least 28 Kenyans caught up in the Russia-Ukraine conflict have been repatriated since December last year.
We are not in any way aiding any group that is recruiting Kenyans to serve on the part of any party to this conflict. Those who have unfortunately found themselves, in the battlefield and are facing difficulty, a number of them have come to our missions, have reached out to our mission in Moscow. And I have, information that 28 of them have been repatriated back since December last year.
P.S. Singoe, who spoke during the Reshaping India-Kenya Cooperation Symposium in Nairobi, attributed this situation to illegal recruitment networks that have in the recent past targeted vulnerable Kenyans with false promises of employment opportunities abroad.
Some of them could have lost their lives because they have not been able to communicate with their parents, communicate with their relatives, and therefore it is presumed that perhaps they may have lost their lives. Unfortunately, we do not have the infrastructure to be able to determine those numbers because in the first instance, we were not involved at the point at which they were recruited.
To address the situation, the government is in constant engagement with the Russian Federation to curb the illegal recruitment.
In order to stave off further recruitment, further irregular recruitment being undertaken here, we are working closely with the Russian Federation mission in Nairobi. They have given us the assurance that their government does not support this either, particularly the idea that some of them are being irregularly recruited.
The government is also in contact with the Ukrainian government to facilitate the release of distressed Kenyans held as prisoners of war.
With respect to Kenyans who have been captured by the government of Ukraine and are being held as prisoners of war, we are in the process of negotiating their release.
And as accusations, counter-accusations and promises continue to mount, questions linger on how soon these diplomatic talks will yield the safe return of all those still trapped or detained. John Kahiro for Prime Edition.
And President William Ruto has reiterated his administration's commitment to empowering young people through a transformative and corruption-free economic program. Speaking in Meru during the rollout of the Nyota Business Startup Capital Project, the head of state said the initiative is designed to unlock opportunities, reduce unemployment, and equip young people with the skills and resources needed to participate meaningfully in the country's economic growth.
Thousands of youth from across the upper eastern region converged at the Kinoru Stadium in Meru County to witness the rollout of the Nyota Business Startup Capital Project. President William Ruto oversaw the disbursement of 168 million shillings to more than 6,720 beneficiaries from Meru, Embu and Tharaka Nithi counties. President Ruto said the rollout of a corruption-free empowerment program is already bearing fruit.
This is how we are going to demonstrate that government and government programs can be run with integrity, without corruption, when people do things for themselves, when we have a digital platform that makes sure every young person, whoever they are, whoever they may not know, can find their way into a forum like this without patronage, without corruption, and without any matters of integrity.
The head of state further underscored the importance of integrity and accountability in the implementation of the program, warning that any form of corruption or mismanagement of public funds will not be tolerated.
Mtu hapa amehonga mtu ndio aweze kufika hapa. Mumeitishwa pesa. Mkaambiwa ya kwamba ndio ukue katika program ya Nyota, nipatie shilingi 50, shilingi 100, 500 ndio ukue katika hii program. Kama kuna mtu amelipa pesa hapa, nataka kujua, because I want to deal with those characters wenye wamezoea mambo ya ufisadi.
Leaders who accompanied him welcomed the initiative, saying it will go a long way in reducing unemployment and empowering young people to become job creators rather than job seekers.
Na kuna viongozi wengine nimeona wanaleta siasa kwa hii mambo. Wengine wanasema sijui hii pesa haitoshi. Wale ambao wanalalamika ya kwamba hii pesa ni kidogo, wao wenyewe wamekuwa viongozi na hakuna hata siku wamesaidia kijana hata na shilingi 5,000.
While many people in this republic, Your Excellency, have always seen the young people of Kenya as their mere supporters, you have seen partners in them who can partner with you in changing the course of our history of our country, Your Excellency.
Watu wengi walikuwa nafikiria wewe ni siasa tu ulikuwa unafanya. But we have seen you focus on young people through jobs, Maju. We have seen you focus on young people through affordable housing. Na leo tumeona very important program inaitwa Nyota.
Rais alituamurisha ya kwamba to make sure kwamba hii pesa ya biashara ikuwe ya biashara tu, isiende kulipana ile madeni mengine. Kama wewe ulifuliza, hiyo mtalipana huko kwingine. Kwa hivyo hii pesa itaingia kwa pochi la biashara, it is ring fence, fuliza haitachukua pesa yako.
The Nyota program is part of the government's broader economic transformation agenda aimed at uplifting the youth and strengthening small and medium enterprises across the country.
Now, the National Police Service is on the spot regarding 4 stalled projects, with the Auditor General's report pointing to abandoned construction works, significant financial irregularities and breached contractual agreements. Appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, Banis Lemedeket, the accounting officer of the National Police Service, was hard-pressed to explain why a 2-story building of 24 units project that initially cost 64 million shillings was retendered for 114 million shillings. This is despite the initial contractor having been paid 23 million shillings for the project that was only 35% complete. Abdiaziz Hashim has that story.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
The National Police Service is under scrutiny regarding abandoned projects by contractors, despite being paid substantial amounts of money.
Projects end at a certain percentage, like in Roman 2, they ended at about 50%, and then they are retendered at almost 10 times the price.
Could this be a cash cow? Are projects being used as cash cows in this ministry?
Now this demonstrates the wastage and sometimes deliberately calculated wastage in public service.
An Auditor General's report tabled before the Public Accounts Committee revealed that a 2-story building of 24 units that sold in 2006-2007 financial year has cost taxpayers an extra 73 million shillings to retender in 2023-2024 financial year.
Is it fair to say that the taxpayer lost 73 million?
There was no loss of fact. The increment was caused by the change of scope of work.
Honorable members, there was a lot that has happened at that particular time. To be very honest, 16 years is a lot of time. So, like I said earlier, government happens in perpetuity.
Appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, Banis Lemedeket, the accounting officer for NPS, was hard-pressed to explain why the project that was initially costing 64 million shillings was retendered for 114 million shillings, despite the initial contractor already paid 23 million shillings for the project that was only 35% complete. In their defense, the National Police Service says the adjustment was guided by inflation costs and the construction materials used in 2023-2024 financial year.
A difference of 73 million is not a little money. Now, I understand that if a project stalls, with time, when you retender, it's bound to change. But it cannot change by this extent.
I'm trying to give an explanation of the 71 million difference. And number 2 is now the cost of production at this particular time, honorable members, is of course different from 17 years ago.
This as the committee led by Butere Member of Parliament Tidi Mwale raised issue with yet another project, a lecture hall at the Administration Police Training College in Embakasi that cost the taxpayer an additional 38 million shillings. Bani stated that the lecture hall was certified as structurally unsound. The NPS accounting officer stated that they have requested additional resources to reinforce the building, an expense that will be shouldered by the taxpayers.
You don't need to defend something to the bitter end. Sometimes you learn and you change and you become smarter.
Declaring the building structurally unsound and recommended that it remained unoccupied pending either demolition or further remedial measure to strengthen the structure.
The Auditor General has also established that a construction of an inpatient facility that cost 12 million shillings also stalled due to 4.7 million shillings on payment to the contractor 12 years down the line.
I must admit that the last time we appeared here, we had a lot of police officers who have really not been paid.
The guys work, they pay taxes like everybody, they expose themselves every day to vagaries of life, yet the government cannot pay the premium to get them paid when they get injured, when they die. Their children and wives and husbands languish in poverty, yet they have given exemplary service to this country.
According to the Auditor General, the National Police Service also lacks title deeds for several lands, exposing them to risks of land grabbing and encroachment.
Total parcel of police land is 4,000 parcels and 75. Parcels with title deed are 242. Parcels with allotment letter are 59. Undocumented parcels of land is 3,712. Parcels disputed or encroached are 32, and parcel with PIDPs are 23, and surveyed land we have 7 parcels of land.
Abdiaziz Hashim for Prime Edition.
We have come to the end of the session.
And that story by Abdiaziz Hashim brings us to our first break here on Prime Edition. Later on in the program, we shall be having a conversation with Engineer Evans Goro on why buildings are collapsing in Kenya. You want to stay tuned to that and much more? Stay with us.
Guess how long line zetu za stima ziko? 320,000 kilometers. Hiyo ni kama go around the earth 8 times. Wacha nikuelezee how far we go to bring you electricity.
Hapa ni substation. Substation, hata engineers wakikuja, they don't just walk in. They have to be in touch with the controllers. They ask them to give them permits ya wafanyakazi kwa any place.
Boss, hii sasa ndio final. Inaitwa transmission line. These lines transmit power from big stations like Olkaria at 200 up to 500,000 volts. Kazi yangu is to let 500,000 volts of electricity flow around me while I work so that Kenyans can get power. Hii kazi inahitaji bravery, strength, confidence, courage, hizo vitu zote. Kila saa nikiambia watu kazi mimi nafanya, wananiuliza why, na mimi nawauliza why. Somebody has to do it. For them, for you. Shine on Kenya, pamoja tu.
Uwepo wako uende nasi. Usiibe mtihani, utapatwa na mashaka. Hata ukiniangalia ni wewe ninaambia.
Kuwa asilimia kubwa ya vijana ulimwenguni hata nchini haina maadili.
Nani alaumiwe? Serikali, shule ama wazazi? Kwa maoni yangu, naona wazazi ndio wanafaa walaumiwe.
Kwa maoni yangu, hamna mtu yoyote ambaye anapaswa kulaumiwa.
Mtoto wa mjini hajui kulima.
Jitoto vya mjini vinajua kulima.
Kaunti nambari 10 inaitwaje?
Nakuru.
Maajabu na miujiza.
Katika Qur'an tukufu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anatuamuru tukumbushane, kwani kukumbushana kunawafaa waumini. Kwa mujibu wa hadithi, Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam anatushauri tueneze ujumbe wake angalau kwa aya moja. Basi tunatia ari kufanya ambacho ni jukumu la kila Muislamu, kukumbushana mema na kukatazana maovu.
Tunakuletea mawaidha za mashehe, wataalam, maustadh, madrasa, makala spesheli na Okti Fatuma Yakub, mafunzo na historia za mitume na maswahaba, na burudani kupitia nashid na wasifu za munshid. Tazama ukumbi wa Kiislamu nami Alishe kila Ijumaa saa 9:30 katika KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. You are watching Prime Edition. Now, the High Court has declared unconstitutional the appointment of 21 advisors serving in the office of the President. Justice Bahati Mwamuye ruled that the process used to create the advisory positions and appoint the office holders violated the Constitution and public service laws. The court has nullified the appointments, stopped any payments to the advisors, and ordered a comprehensive audit of offices created during the same period.
The case was filed by the Katiba Institute, a constitutional law advocacy organization, which challenged the legality of the 21 advisory positions established within the office of the President. The institute argued that the offices were created without clear legal framework, public participation, or adherence to constitutional and public service procedures governing public appointments and the use of public funds. In his ruling, High Court Judge Justice Bahati Mwamuye found that the process used to establish the offices and appoint the advisors was unlawful. The court quashed the decision creating the position, declared all 21 appointments null and void, and issued a permanent injunction barring any payments of salaries, allowance, or benefits. The judge further ordered a comprehensive audit of all offices created during the same period and directed the respondents to complete the audit and file a progress report with the court within 120 days. Leto Debra for Prime Edition.
Now, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation has been ranked among the top-performing parastatals in Kenya. This is according to a survey conducted across all 47 counties in the month of January by Kenya Truck Survey. According to the survey, the national broadcaster has expanded local content, strengthened digital platforms, and enhanced its role in public information as well as civic education. The Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, that is REREC, the Kenya Institute of Special Education, and the Kenya Institute of those were also among the top performers.
Kenya Broadcasting Corporation has done it again, having been named among the top parastatals in Kenya from a sample size of 4,876 conducted across the country. The survey was conducted between 2nd and 17th of January 2026. According to the Kenya Truck Survey, KBC continued its role as a primary channel for public communication and civic education, expanding local content and digital media platforms. The Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, REREC, stood out for implementing 5,000 electrification projects in the last 2 years, connecting 60,000 new customers to electricity. The survey notes that the Kenya Institute of Special Education, KISE, made significant strides in inclusive education, training teachers and integrating learners with disabilities into mainstream schools. The National Irrigation Authority expanded irrigated acreage, contributing to food security and reducing import dependence, while the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, stabilized medical supply chains, supporting universal health coverage reforms. The Kenya Railways Corporation, KRC, sustained efficient operations of the standard gauge railway, enhancing regional logistics and reducing road congestion. Meanwhile, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, KICD, successfully consolidated the competency-based curriculum, ensuring alignment with the skills and jobs agenda. The Media Council of Kenya, MCK, upheld media professionalism and press freedom, while the Kenya Roads Board, KRB, improved road conditions and agency coordination. The Kenya Meat Commission, KMC, stabilized livestock markets during droughts. Respondents in the survey were persons above 18 years of age, living in both rural and urban areas. Mchuma Odim, Prime Edition.
And the Green Africa Foundation has signed a memorandum of understanding with Thailand in a move at improving that aims to improve the standards of education between the two nations, as well as putting mechanisms in place to conserve the environment and the ecosystems at large. The Director of Education, Yusuf Karayu, who represented the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Education, said there is need for the two nations to work together in uplifting education standards and have stringent mitigation measures of dealing with matters climate. The founder of Green Africa, who is also a renowned environmentalist, that is Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, hailed the measures put in place by the two countries to deal with climate change, saying the agreement will create a digital-first learning and research platform that transforms tested real-world experience into structured, quality, verified learning that scales responsibility without excluding citizens who cannot access traditional campus pathways.
Memorandum of understanding. So, on behalf of the ministry, we pledge support for all activities as far as this memorandum of understanding is concerned.
We believe that there is a lot that Thailand can learn from Kenya, just as we are going to be able to learn from Thailand. Through one of our arms, the Green Institute of Pragmatic Knowledge. This is a center that is using what it has as we advance to other licenses so that we can partner. We are looking forward to partner with institutions of great nature. We are working with universities world over, looking forward to advance in partnership with universities in Italy, particularly many more that are also beyond this. So it's not something that we are starting. We've been working on it, and we believe that this is going to advance in a big way.
Now, the High Court has drawn a clear line on what the Small Claims Court can and cannot handle. In a key ruling today, the court said personal injury cases do not belong to the court. Our reporter now breaks down the decision and its impact.
A three-judge bench of the High Court ruled that although Small Claims Court is mandated to hear contractual dispute, monetary claims and certain minor torts, personal injury matters, including those arising from motor vehicle accidents, are outside its jurisdiction.
That claims for personal injuries arising out of road traffic accident are excluded from Section 12, subsection 1D of the Small Claims Court Act. Accordingly, the Small Claims Court has no jurisdiction to entertain such claims forthwith. 2.
The court upheld most of the small claims rules, but invalidated one of being unconstitutional.
It is therefore unconstitutional and ultra-vires Sections 37, 39, and 40 of the Act as read together with Article 94, Sub-Article 6 of the Constitution. E. The claim for damages in petition number E010 of 2024 is hereby declined. In terms of cost, we declare that this being a public interest litigation, parties shall bear own costs. That is the judgment of the court.
It further directed all the personal injury cases currently before the Small Claims Court be transferred to Magistrate Court with proper jurisdiction, with each party ordered to bear its own costs and no damages awarded. The decision settles ongoing uncertainty over court's mandate. DJ Brownskin has been acquitted of charges aiding his wife's suicide at the Nairobi Chief Magistrate Court. The case arose from the death of his wife, Sharon Jerry, in July 2022 at their Nairobi home, with prosecutors alleging that DJ played a role in her death. However, in a ruling delivered today, Principal Magistrate Caroline Mogo found that the prosecution had failed to provide sufficient evidence to prove the charge, leading to Brownskin's acquittal.
I therefore find that a prima facie case has not been established against the accused person, and I proceed to acquit the accused person under Section 210 of the CPC on all the counts.
Elsewhere, murder suspect Nicholas Julius Macharia appeared before the High Court in Nyeri, where he changed his plea in the case involving the killing of 7-year-old Tamara Blessings Kabura in Witemere slum, Nyeri County.
It's only to inform you that murder carries a death penalty in kifungo ya kifo, but ndio sheria inasema, na kuna wakili alikueleza sio kila kitu. Sasa ndio nataka kusomea mashtaka. So the substance, umeelewa? Come.
The court heard that Macharia had earlier pleaded guilty to the murder of the minor, but later entered not guilty plea, promoting the case to proceed to trial. The matter is now scheduled for February 9th, 2026, for the reading of facts and submission of sentencing arguments. Letua Debra for Prime Edition.
Nimeandika kwamba umeelewa hiyo maneno nilikueleza. Wewe ndio Nicholas Julius Macharia.
And now we get into the world of business. Kenya has taken a significant step towards digitally transforming water and irrigation development planning following the official handover of the Water Availability and Demand tool to the National Irrigation Authority. Irrigation Principal Secretary Ephantus Kimotho says the tool will support better planning and management of water resources by providing reliable data to guide the development of key infrastructure such as dams, water pipelines, and irrigation schemes.
Kenya is classified as a country with irrigation at 85% of the total fresh water, only 15% for domestic use. Despite this, only about 25% of Kenya's irrigable land is currently under irrigation, yet much of it remains highly fertile and underutilized.
Kenya is a water scarce country, and based on the ambitious programs which we have in terms of food security in this country, we will need to have such kind of tools to enable us to be able to design the infrastructure.
To address this, the Water Availability and Demand tool, developed through a collaboration between the National Irrigation Authority and the International Water Management Institute under the Food and Agriculture Organization, is expected to promote sustainability by guiding irrigation projects designed based on accurate assessments of and demand informed by real-time data.
The tool is going to be very important, especially on the economic plan of the country, in that when we design our dams, this tool is going to help us design appropriate dams, and that's get value for money. In terms, it will help us avoid over-designing a dam, whereby you design a dam that is too big, too big compared to the water available in that particular basin.
With the National Irrigation Authority now taking full ownership of the tool, Kenya is expected to strengthen its ability to manage water resources more efficiently while unlocking the full potential of its irrigation.
When we did this as a pilot, and now we already have the tool and we are handing it over, there is going to be continuity. And this is something that has already been committed here. We need to get more and more of data so that we are more precise. And once we're there, we need to also roll out the use of this tool.
The Water Availability and Demand tool visualizes water availability, agricultural demand, and storage potential on a single platform.
The word will help us, one, to identify locations which are really very suitable for water storage, which is very important. And it helps you also to determine how much water storage is needed to grow a particular crop, which means it also estimates the crop water requirement, which is also important. So it means the demand side as well as the supply side.
Sylvia Gatti for Prime Edition.
And Kenya's economy is projected to grow 5% in the medium term, but the Controller of Budget warns that the economic growth should deliberately be anchored on improving livelihoods. Controller of Budget, that is Dr. Margaret Nyakango, says that while inflation has eased, declining consumption per capita and falling real wages signals that the macroeconomic gains are not positively impacting households.
Launched State of the Kenyan Economy Reports offers an assessment of current economic conditions, painting a picture of widening gaps between microeconomic stability and household welfare. The report says real average wage earnings per employee has declined 4% from 696,817 shillings in 2022 to 665,418 shillings in 2024. This decline has persisted even as inflation eased from 7.7% in 2022 to 4.5% in 2025, signaling that lower inflation has not restored purchasing power.
Our analysis shows that we need to do a better job connecting our economic growth and the realities and daily lived realities by citizens. We've seen a steady growth over the last 20 years of our economy, growing at an average rate of about 4.3 to 4.5%.
Is that the stability has not translated into shared prosperity. They have seen higher costs of living. They have seen declining real wages, insecure and informal employment. We have seen reduced access to quality public services.
While acknowledging efforts to restore fiscal stability, they say revenue estimation is among factors that continue to undermine effective fiscal management.
Why create the need to borrow by approving a budget that we already know, at the start of the financial year cannot be financed by the revenues that the government projects?
Accountability and oversight risks associated with new financing vehicles and off-budget arrangements, also known as the Article 223, have rubbished the reforms.
The report has identified the privatization agenda and governance of the National Infrastructure Fund, debt securitization frameworks, and the sustainability of health sector financing amid declining external support as areas that require close monitoring. Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition.
Now, sugar prices in Kenya are expected to remain stable despite a drop in cane production as several millers prepare to resume operations after months of closure. Kenya Sugar Board Chief Executive Officer, that is Jude Chesire, says the current sugar shortage was anticipated amid industry reforms, including the handover and renovation of state-owned mills and a temporary ban on harvesting immature cane.
The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics recently flagged a potential increase in the price of sugar due to reduced production, sparking concerns over affordability of the sweetener. However, the Kenya Sugar Board Chief Executive Officer, Jude Chesire, has assured consumers that prices will remain stable as cane production is set to recover this year. Chesire said the current shortage was anticipated with the industry undergoing major reforms. 4 state-owned factories were handed over and underwent 9 months of renovations, while 7 factories in Western Kenya and Kwale were closed to allow cane to reach optimal maturity. The Kenya Sugar Board says several sugar factories are set to resume operations soon, with millions of tons of sugar ready for milling. Full-scale harvesting and milling is projected from October to November 2026, marking the start of a sustained rebound in domestic sugar output. He says market stabilization measures will ensure steady supply, predictable prices, and protection against artificial shortages and speculation. Farmers and millers have been urged to respect cane maturity timelines to guarantee quality sugar production and support recovery efforts. The Kenya Sugar Board says these plans balances short-term supply constraints with long-term industry stability. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Guess how long line zetu za stima ziko?
Bright moments. Moments that inspire, enlighten, and give hope, joy, and clarity. We move forward together, shining and with purpose. For years, we have been your trusted partners that have kept the path illuminated into a bright shared future. Empowering education, information, and entertainment, bringing light to homes, schools, shops, and hospitals in urban centers and villages. Our aim is to do everything possible to keep dreams alive through dedication and power. Kenya Power.
Pamoja twang'aa.
Kila mwisho wa juma kwenye runinga yako ya KBC Channel 1.
Tunakuletea Mkulima.
Ni kipindi cha kila mtu.
Iwe wewe ni mkulima mdogo, mkulima mkubwa
muuzaji au mnunuzi,
au yeyote anayenuia kuanzisha kilimo ama ufugaji.
Tunaanza kwa mbinu bora na za kisasa za kilimo, ufugaji,
fursa za kibiashara, kuongeza thamani pamoja na teknolojia za kuboresha kilimo.
Ni chakula ambayo kwetu sisi inatuletea mapato mazuri, watoto wanasoma vizuri.
Mkulima kisasa inakupa maarifa,
motisha na suluhu za kurahisisha mazao,
kuongeza kipato na kulisha taifa kwa ujumla.
Tazama Mkulima kila Jumamosi saa 10:30
ambapo kilimo na fursa zinapatikana.
Mkulima, tuko hapa kwa ajili yako.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Prime Edition. My name is Betty Kiptum and Lucy Moura is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Over the next half hour or so, we want to start now to have our interactive session in studio and discuss an issue that has been plaguing Kenya, collapsed buildings. It is estimated that over 200 structural collapses have happened since the year 1996. Between 2009 and 2019 alone, 86 buildings collapsed. The highest was in 2015 at 21. And we just want to figure out what is happening and why are buildings collapsing in Kenya. To have this conversation with me in studio is Engineer Evans Goro. Welcome on set.
Thank you.
Those are very worrying numbers. People have lost their lives to these collapsed buildings. The most recent one was the South Sea building collapse. And 2 people lost their lives there. What is happening? Why are buildings collapsing in Kenya?
Well, in the building industry, there are things we have to look at the natural way and natural professionally, which are neglected very, very heavily. There's a lot of professionalism being pushed aside by other arms of other systems, and this is quite well spread in most, at least the 2 basic professional industries that handle a lot of money. That is construction and medical. There are a lot of malpractices happening, and like you said, there is a lot of collapsing building. That means something is collapsing. And for it to collapse, we have to look at how it is generated, how it is carried through up to the point of implementation, where during or after implementation, there is failure that leads to collapsing. And the best issue is look at the practical, well-written laws and bylaws in Kenya documents, which are highly ignored. When we talk of a building industry, the first thing we look at what is going to be built and what is the end product. For that to happen, there are many professional fingers to touch it. There is the land. There is the planning. These are one of the first major steps that must be respected. It doesn't matter what it is going to be built or not. First, those must be respected. After those are within the operation parameters, then you go to the other levels of the actual project to be implemented, whether it is viable and what is it for, and then start narrowing down to serious professionalism required at each different discipline. Now here in Kenya, it is that plot, we need a building this high. Let's get somebody to do it. That's the way I see it, that it is done. But that is not the professional way. The planner is supposed to look at that within this area, the population is this way, the infrastructure is this, that is water, sewage, accessibility, and other environmental issues are properly there. Then before he goes into more details, do you need environmental, you need geotechnical, and other issues looked at. It is when those are now being addressed, you come to space usage. the architectural input, and when the architectural input is within the progress of maybe 25% in proposal, then the structural input starts coming in.
Okay.
And when they come in, that is when they discuss with the architect as to the frames and slabs and whatnot and depths and levels. And where they're still there, then he looks at the material available, the structural engineer, to sustain the system the way the architect space is required. Now, when they are comparing and agreeing on various professional inputs into the end product, now they come even to discuss issues about the height. Because after 15, 18 meters high of a building, in most parts of Kenya, the horizontal pushes and the earthquakes are the most critical. Mm-hmm. Look at the building you said in South Sea.
Yeah.
It was not 14 or 15 stories. Yes. If you look at that height and the picture of the column we saw in the media, you can see obviously why it failed.
Now, 80% of construction that happens in Kenya is done informally. No one goes through the channels that are supposed to be gone through. But even the 20% that is done formally, there are still problems, as you said. There's the issue of corruption. Corruption is a big problem because even at the approval stage, and then once they are approved, people are not following the approved designs. Why is this the case?
In this so-called bylaw of the laws of Kenya, everything is written, and if you break or you don't follow them, you're supposed to be handled the legal professional way. Who is to handle you? The authority on the ground. Looking at a domestic house, when it is still at preliminary stage, the planner is supposed to talk with the structural engineer and the architect and tell them, on this plot, you can cover this percentage of the plot with a building. And if this plot is 50 by 100, that is 5,000 square meters, the floor area is given a ratio to that plot size. Like you can be told here, the ratio is 5. So you can only build floors that add up to 5 times that plot area. Then with that, and you're told you can cover it only 50%. With that, they are able to design with those parameters, but you can use less. And then there are other controls that if you build apartments, they are told that every 2 apartments must have 3 parkings. And that is not, we never see it. That means the approval by the local authority is illegal. Because once you follow the plot ratio and the plot coverage and plot parking per house, then the architect is now able to relate well with the others. But from one inch down the street, if you look at developments in Kiledeshwa and Lavington, where the plot ratio, I assume it is 5% of 50% coverage and 5% of the plot size and 3 parkings per apartment, that doesn't seem to be met anywhere. And somebody should tell us why that is not being followed. And incidentally, these areas, they are called Zone 3, 5, and 6. When I used to sit in a development board in City Hall, the ratios were to be approved after the roads, the water, the sewage, and all the necessary infrastructure have been approved and expanded. When I was sitting there, none of that infrastructure has changed. But ratios, even those proposed then and were not approved then, are being superseded. So who is not following the law? When something fails, the big word being put into the media is the contractor. And that is where I get to see that people, the users, do not know where the failure is. What does a contractor do? He builds, implements from specifications and details provided by the consultants. That is our law. So here the contractor is not failing because he's following the proper document. If the documents are not proper, then the consultants have failed. And if the consultants have failed, but they have got local authority approval, then even the local authority has failed. But there are a lot of things that are happening where even the developer comes to manipulate and says, this is my project. I don't want this guy. The law says you cannot use an architectural drawing and give it to another architect without authority from the original designer. And if the original designer wants to hand it over, he puts formal instructions to the approving authority and to the legal authorities to say, now so-and-so can use my specification and design. All his specifications and design are all withdrawn, removed and demolished, and a new project starts. But we see here, maybe quoting areas from what Wananchi said, there are approved drawings for a 15-story building somewhere in Nairobi.
It's okay.
Somewhere in Nairobi that were designed by engineer ABCD, and construction is being supervised by engineer XYZ.
Right. Let me just pause you there for a second. There's something that we need to fix. We want to take a quick break here on Prime Edition. When we come back, this conversation continues on exactly why buildings are collapsing in this country. Stay with us.
Kila Jumamosi saa 1 jioni kuna sauti mbili zinazotawala anga ya habari. Dada wawili pacha, magwiji wa ulingo wa habari.
Karibu sana katika Dira ya Magwiji.
Magwiji kwa upekee wa sauti, mtindo na maarifa.
Katika enzi ya sasa iliyosheheni mabadiliko,
tuko ange kukuletea taarifa, fafanuzi kutoka kila pembe ya dunia.
Jamila na Wanjiru wanakupeleka kwenye safari ya taarifa, uchambuzi na uhodari wa matukio yanayotikisa dunia.
Tunajizatiti kukupa taarifa sahihi na kwa wakati.
Habari kwa jicho la kitaalam.
Tuna hamu na hamamu katika kuuliza maswali stahiki yenye kuwajibisha.
Na sauti ya uhalisia.
Tupe sikio na macho kwa taarifa za kina.
Dira ya Magwiji, pacha wa habari. Kila Jumamosi, saa 1 jioni hapa KBC Channel 1.
Thank you for staying with us and welcome back to Prime Edition. I am with Engineer Evans Goro. We are discussing the reasons as to why buildings are collapsing in Kenya. Thank you for staying with us, Engineer. Now, there are authorities that are supposed to make sure that these processes are followed and that constructions are done by the book. Because
yes.
At the end of the day, this is about human life. We have to keep people safe. So why are there loopholes? Why are the authorities failing?
One, I have given a brief description of the professionals. When these professionals do their work and specify material, that material is supposed to be used as specified. And when the contractor is quoting, he quotes that specified material with the quantities given by the consultants. And those are the quantities to be used. And there is a construction program. And within that construction program, there is even written regulation where it says the consultants shall visit sites in this kind of frequency, which should not exceed 14 days. But that sometimes is not followed because some people come into play, and mostly it is the local authority and the developer. Once construction starts, that land becomes an operational area, and it is handed to the contractor, who is to be supervised by the consultants. But the developer or the owner of the project can visit on notification of those two parties, the construction party and the consultant party. But he cannot give instructions to the contractor unless through the consultants. So sometimes he'll come and give instructions to the contractor that will affect the materials. That he can say, the bit you have quoted here is costing so much, but the cement we know costs so much. So can you change it from this to this? Cement is a product that is manufactured for certain purposes. Not all cement is for reinforced structural member. There is cement for plaster, cement for every part. But if you take the cheaper one and use it in the wrong place, it will fail because of the behavior and strength as required are not being met. And that is there very, very openly, eye-open in Kenya, that there is cement for plaster made by a certain company, name withheld professionally, that is used for reinforced concrete. And in the bag, it is written grade 32.5, because for reinforced concrete, the grades are written on the side. Yet the material inside does not meet that grade. Research has been done and proven that that cement is not even good for plaster, but it is there. And some of the developers will insist, you buy my cement from this and this company, and this is being, there's media literature going around that all government projects say their cement must be bought from a certain company. And then when we go to the reinforcement bars, they are of specific behavior, strength, and all scientific controls that we use in the books of analysis, this the compression, the tension, the torsion strength, all that, that must be met for them to be used for structural members. So seeing these collapsing systems and a bit of the university laboratories, research has been done and found out that most of the reinforced being used for reinforced concrete members do not meet the professional specification as required. In fact, most of it is at 48, 49% of the specificational behavior required. And it's even worse when it is put on a technical, what you call it, microscope. You can see it has impurities and bubbles. That means those impurities and bubbles will continue degenerating because of oxidation and whatnot, and that member of that steel will be maybe 10% the capacity in 4 years' time. And this building, if it is 12 stories, and this thing is 10%, it will not even reach 36 months before it collapses.
Right.
Yes, and that is the failure we have of professionalism being pushed aside, inferior material being brought on side, and some authoritative arms saying that material of this and this must be bought from this and this supplier. Yes.
Right. Just to give some statistics, according to a report done by Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Bureau of Standards, rather, KEBS, in 2022, 3 out of 5 cement samples failed to meet required standards for compressives. 3 out of 5. So that is.
Yeah, I can pick. I know those 3 and I know those 5.
Okay. Right. So what is the way forward? Because it really looks like a very grim situation for Kenyans. According to National Construction Authority, 58% of buildings in Nairobi are unfit for habitation. And so Kenyans are wondering, is there any solution to this?
Okay, now let's look at the other thing now. We talked about the contractor being managed, controlled by the professionals. National Construction Authority, when they say unfit for human habitation, what are they looking at? The design or the material or the contractor's participation? Because we need to get the right people in the right operational room. Just like in the medical world, you have a doctor and a nurse in two different places because the doctor gives instruction to the nurse to implement. And we are having a lot of failure in that. And I think there's a lot of malpracticing into that, where there was even complaints by consultants saying National Construction Authority should be dealing with contractors, not consultants. And they should help us manage and understand that the contractors have understanding of the material we have specified, but not to tell the consultant architect, engineer, water, how to specify material. The nurse does not tell the doctor the medicine to prescribe. But that has come into play because of the financial outlay. Like if you look at a project, it has a budget. Call it 100 shillings. All that laid out, professionals will take about 15 to 18% of their 100 shillings. The rest will go to construction material and specification. So this guy with 84% is the one that is being pushed around by authorities and other arms so that corruptions can be played and it is not seen clearly. Yes, and this has been discussed a lot in the Building Industry Forum. I even presented a paper into that we follow procedure step by step. Where the consultants, just like a doctor gives specification to the nurse implements. So we have total management of the contractors and suppliers instead of them telling us what to specify. Although they have a play, when you specify a material and it's not easily available, they come and ask for guidance from the consultants. But there is that manipulation that is in play that people are calling corruption. And we should not say a contractor fails. There are those who have specified. And on the other hand, the contractor should not use what is not specified unless revised revision and signed document is done.
Right. Definitely there is a lot to talk about. I'm informed that we've run out of time. Let me just give you 30 seconds to give us your closing remarks.
Yes, our closing remark, and we should look at it very critically, is we have a lot of foreign companies that are building here. And we did a visitation and a research on a few projects done by foreign countries. And you will notice all the projects they are doing, they hide everything, they don't put their signboards, and it is a law, the signboard of construction should be on the roadside, like what is being built near Bomas, nobody knows what it is. And there is a law that the signboard and the approval details should be there. And some of these people do not have capacity better than Kenyans. We have the capacity, we don't see why these foreigners are coming, maybe because they are lending us the money, but they should associate with us, even if they're helping us with money, so that some of the laws and design codes are followed. Like the Chinese design code is not usable in Kenya, we have to revise it. And therefore, those design codes might bring collapse because of different environmental and material controls, which are very different from what we use for design.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Engineer, for sharing your thoughts. It's important to deal with the corruption bit of it and also to align our regulations. That is Engineer Evans Goro just making sense of the buildings that are collapsing in Kenya, 200 since 1996, and he says a lot needs to change. We move on to other news. A bid by Nigeria's Zenith Bank to acquire Kenya's Paramount Bank has been approved by the Competition Authority of Kenya on condition that all employees are retained for at least 12 months. The deal has been announced a day after South Africa's Nedbank proposed to acquire 66% of shares in NCBA Group.
Bank Zenith is set to make Kenya's its 8th market if it completes acquisition of Paramount Bank. The transaction involves Zenith acquiring 100% shareholdings of Paramount Bank. The transaction seeks to strengthen Paramount Bank's financial position, ensuring long-term compliance with enhanced core capital requirements. The Competition Authority of Kenya has okayed the proposed acquisition, as the transaction is unlikely to raise competition concerns. As part of the approval, Zenith Bank is required to retain Paramount Bank's 78 employees for 12 months following completion of the proposed transaction. The proposed transaction comes a day after South Africa's Nedbank announced its intention to acquire 66% of NCBA Group through a tender offer in a deal valued at 110 billion shillings. The deal will see NCBA becoming Nedbank's subsidiary while retaining a 34% free float on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The proposed deal values NCBA at 1.4 times its book value, with shareholders receiving 20% in cash and the rest in Nedbank share listed in Johannesburg.
It will create very good activity in Nairobi Securities Exchange, which is needed. And I hope that this transaction will add to the few that are coming already that will create that liquidity to allow for price discovery as well.
Both banks say the acquisition would anchor Kenya as Nedbank's gateway into East Africa, subject to regulatory approvals expected within 9 months. Benson Rioba, reporting for Prime Edition.
And the government has reassured residents living around the proposed Grand Falls Dam project in Kitui and Tharaka Nithi counties of transparency and public participation as preparations for the multi-billion shilling project gather pace. Energy Cabinet Secretary Opiyo Wandayi, while visiting the site, noted that once completed, the dam will not only enhance food security and power generation, but also serve as a major water storage facility for both domestic and industrial use.
The proposed dam is expected to span 2 constituencies, Mwingi North in Kitui County and Tharaka constituency in Tharaka Nithi County. Once completed, the project is projected to bring far-reaching benefits to both local communities and the wider region.
We have had a plan for many years as government to develop a multi-purpose dam here. The famous High Grand Falls Dam. That will, of course, address many issues, including flooding downstream and facilitate irrigation, but more critically, generate power.
The project is also expected to play a critical role in flood control, particularly in the lower Tana River Basin, which has historically suffered devastating floods during periods of heavy rainfall. Wandayi further assured residents that public participation forums will be conducted once all preparatory work is complete. He said the consultations will provide an opportunity for affected communities to raise concerns as the government works out fair compensation mechanisms for those who may be displaced.
We are working very closely, of course, with KenGen, which is the lead agency in this project, the local communities, led by their elected leaders, and many other government agencies and departments.
Ndutamo Kami for Prime Edition.
Revenue Authority is deepening incorporation of technology in its operations by prioritizing systems that are both user-friendly and robust to improve tax compliance. Speaking in Nairobi, Kenya Revenue Authority Chairperson, that is Ndiritu Muridhi, said the initiative aims to simplify tax processes for businesses and individuals while ensuring transparency and accountability. Muridhi says the move is key to meeting tax collection targets and strengthening the country's fiscal framework.
In the middle of very ambitious transformation, both in terms of the human side, the organization, the team that works there, but also the processes and technology that we use.
There's also a requirement because now we'll be bringing in huge terabytes of data. So it requires that we also upgrade our infrastructure in order to be able to handle that capacity and to analyze, to be able to manipulate and analyze that data so that we can provide insights that help us to serve our customers better.
And the government is forming a joint Global Innovation Index Committee to address what it calls an inaccurate representation of Kenya's innovation status. Deputy Chief of Staff Josephat Nanok says current data is incomplete or outdated, limiting investment and growth in Kenya's innovation ecosystem.
Kenya was ranked 78th in the Global Innovation Index in 2018, which dropped to 102 as per the 2025 data. However, according to the Global Startup Ecosystem Index, Kenya ranked 58th for the first time in the country's history, gaining over 30 places when compared to 2024. It is from this premise, among other data disparities, that the government says Kenya's innovation status is misrepresented.
The data that has been used for the ranking of Kenya does not fully reflect the true reality on the ground. A closer examination reveals a very different Kenya, one with a vibrant startup ecosystem, investment, and strong global confidence in our.
I trust and believe that we are in the right trajectory. What issue is the information. If we are not providing the information, the data that is required, definitely we will be disadvantaged.
To address the misrepresentation, the government is setting up a committee, starting a National Innovation Index, a central accurate data repository, and the building of awareness and capacity among government institutions.
If we have the data correctly, it will help areas that we need to work on, that we need to improve on. It's what we call knowledge economy. This is an important tool that can help us as a country to grow.
What tells us is that Kenyans are actually producing irrespective of the inputs that they have. And so if we can improve on the inputs beyond the data issues that we deal with, then we'll do very well on the Global Innovation Index.
More will be done, including through policy, to eliminate bureaucracies within government and its partners when empowering startups.
Together, we must close data gaps and modernize reporting systems and ensure that Kenya's innovation story is told accurately, credibly, and confidently on the global stage.
The annual Global Innovation Index evaluates countries' innovation performance, including 80 indicators that cover institutions, human capital, infrastructure, market sophistication, and knowledge and technology outputs.
Alanauko, Prime Edition.
Now, Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has called for the immediate implementation of fully free secondary education in Kenya, stating that education must be protected from political influence. Speaking during a public forum, Nyoro proposed the creation of a national secondary education kitty to fund day secondary schools and school meals across the country. He noted that about 15 billion shillings annually would make secondary education fully free.
What we did in Kiharu in terms of launching a program of learners paying 500 shillings per term, it is the journey towards totally free basic education in Kenya. And we are going to make it happen. TDF at Nairobi level, even before it comes to Kiharu, every constituency must be cut 30 million Kenya shillings, which will amount to 10 billion Kenya shillings nationally. We put that money into a kitty we are going to call Day Secondary School Kitty. The governors in the equitable share to also contribute 10 billion Kenya shillings. We put that money into a kitty of day school. Kenya requires only 30 billion shillings to make day secondary school education free and totally free, including lunch.
Sahi, ukidial *419# option 4 ama uingie kwa tushinde.com, hakuna probox.
Jaribu. Ni ukweli. Yaani imeshaingia na ndio tunafyeka. Pia inaona iko ndani. Wanaongelea nini hao? Ni shamba. Na sio moja, sio mbili, shamba 3 hapa Juja. Very nice. Na ni area moja development na growth iko promising sana. Stima iko ndani. Hiyo. Maji inapatikana. Wow. Security iko sawa na all basic amenities zinapatikana. Shamba ni 3 na kuingia kwa draw ili kujishindia moja kati ya shamba hizi 3 ni 35 bob pekee. Na mtu akitaka zote 3 iko special ticket ya kuweza kujishindia shamba zote 3 kwa tikiti moja ya 99 bob pekee. Hata hiyo, na barabara ni nywe mpaka kwa ploti yako, na kila ploti is worth 1.5 million Kenyan shillings. Hii 2026 hatuland tu, tunaland mara 3 na tushinde.com au *419 hash option 4. Au umesema vizuri sana. Wewe fieka. Na fieka.
Je, wewe ni mpenda soka? Na je, wajua kuwa KBC mwenzio wako wa dhati michezoni anakujali? Ndio maana KBC Channel 1 hukuletea taarifa na uchanganuzi wa soka.
CAF ndio wamechukua usukani
humu nchini, barani Afrika na ughaibuni, ikiwemo EPL, Serie A, Bundesliga na ligi zingine. Mashabiki pia hutuzwa kwa kujibu maswali kuhusiana na soka.
Swali letu la leo.
Haya yote ni kwenye kipindi cha Dunda Dunda kwenye KBC Channel 1 kila Ijumaa kuanzia saa 5 asubuhi hadi saa 6:30 mchana.
Nawahimiza Wakenya waendelee ku-watch Dunda Dunda show.
KBC, mwenzio wa dhati michezoni.
A very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Prime Edition Sport. Rising Starlets head coach Jacqueline Juma has unveiled a 32-member provisional squad ahead of the third round of the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup qualifiers against Tanzania, slated for the 1st and 7th of February at the Ulinzi Sports Complex. The provisional squad is comprised of a blend of experienced players and upcoming talent who include, among others, goalkeepers Christina Diambo, Velma Abuire and Marcia Koth. We've got defenders Elizabeth Ochaka, Laureen Ilavonga, Charlotte Otieno, and Triza Kesa. The midfield has Brenda Awor, Paolo Lesi, Halima Imbachi, Rebecca Odato, and Lorna Faith, while Befin Shali, Quinta Mwendi, and Elizabeth Mideva, Valerie Nekesa, and Emily Moranga lead the front line. The team has been in camp for the last 5 days ahead of the home and away fixtures against Tanzania after an impressive performance in the second round that saw them stand Ethiopia 5-1 on aggregate. Coach Jacqueline Juma has emphasized the importance of maintaining momentum from the Ethiopia victory while remaining fully focused on the challenge posed by our East African neighbors at this stage of qualification.
We have to work on the four components of football, which are technical, tactical, physical na mental, of course. So hakuna yenye nacha ingine. So the 4 of them has to play a very big role. So lazima tuwakie the 4 of them so that to get a complete team.
And Kenya Breweries Limited has announced a 40 million shilling sponsorship for the HSBC Sevens to Nairobi as Kenya prepares to host a World Rugby Sevens international event for the first time. The tournament, set to take place on the 14th to the 15th of next month at the Nyayo Stadium, will see Kenya become only the second African nation after South Africa to host a World Rugby Sevens event. The sponsorship includes 20 million shillings in cash to support the Kenya Rugby Union with tournament delivery and operations, alongside an additional 12 million shillings investment in experiential support aimed at elevating this fun experience, and a further 8 million shillings set aside for publicity support. The men's participating teams in the Sevens Division 2 are Kenya, USA, Uruguay, Germany, Canada, and Belgium, while the women's teams feature Kenya, Brazil, China, Spain, South Africa, and Argentina.
We're excited to announce our partnership. We will be partnering with KRU to a tune of 40 million shillings, 20 million in cash going to KRU for all the arrangements, all the details that they need to put in place to prepare for an amazing tournament experience. For all the teams flying into Kenya for that weekend, that money will go a long way in ensuring the preparation and the execution of the games that weekend will be amazing.
The significance of hosting such a huge event like HSBC Sevens means that we are able to showcase Kenya as a sporting nation, tourist destination, but it also shows the infrastructure that we have.
They are very key to our preparation. They are very key to our prosperity. And I can say we look forward to a very entertaining tournament.
On the 14th and 15th of February, I want to urge each and every person to come support rugby.
The penultimate leg of the second season of the Betika Bingwa Fest heads to the Mumia Sports Complex for the Western Region edition of the competition this weekend. While cross-country championships bronze medalist Anil Simie Benyo is among more than 5,000 athletes set to compete during the penultimate leg and will line up in the lucrative 10,000 meters and 5,000 meter races. Teams across football, rugby and 3x3 basketball and athletes across different race disciplines will be out to have a share of the over 17 million shillings prize pool up for grabs. All team sports will then converge at the Mumia Sports Complex on Sunday for the final showdown. Winners in football and rugby, both men and women, will pocket 1 million shillings each, while the winning teams in the 3x3 basketball will bag home 500,000 shillings. Gold medalists in the lucrative 10,000 meters will take home 300,000 shillings, as the first and second runners-up will pocket 250,000 shillings and 200,000 shillings, respectively. Now, the government has been lauded for integrating sports as a core curricular activity under the competency-based education, that CBE curriculum, a move stakeholders say will play a critical role in nurturing sporting talent across the country in the coming years. Speaking during the official opening of the Kamulu Rofin School Sports Arena, former Harambee Stars coach Francis Kimanzi, alongside other sports stakeholders, said the inclusion of structured sports programs in schools will help identify and develop talent from an early age. Kimanzi noted that learning institutions remain the foundation of sports development, adding that well-equipped facilities and trained personnel are key to producing competitive athletes capable of representing the country at regional and international levels.
Once you open an arena of this magnitude, immediately you start a journey for talent identification. So we are very happy that talent can be identified here.
This is one of the facilities that we are working on as a school, this Arena 2, and we are having it at our senior school, just to be able to support our learners, those who are doing arts and sports science.
It's good that the school has really built an arena to ensure that the kids, both boys and girls, perform well. It's encouraging to see that girl child nowadays is given a chance to play football, a chance to play in other sports.
This is a good avenue for young players, upcoming young players, especially the facility, because most of the time we cannot develop players because of the surface, because of the facilities.
And that's the sport for tonight. And as we remind you, it's that on Sunday at 4 p.m., Nairobi United versus Azam United on your true sports partner, KBC Channel 1. It's a CAF Confederation Cup third round. Nai boys against our neighbors from Tanzania, all happening. And like we say, that is a date, and don't be late. And if you blink, you will miss the link. And also, if you are outside of Nairobi, Radio Taifa on radio if you are traveling. If you are from Western, we've got Radio Ingo. If you are from around Kisumu, Siaya counties and Homa Bay, we've got Mayenga FM. And if you are in Kisii and Nyamira counties, Minto FM. So we got you covered, so you've got no excuse. My name is Daniel Ohome. Over to you, Betty.
Thank you, Daniel, of course, giving us just where to catch that particular match, not sparing even those who are traveling. Thank you, Daniel, for that. Now, that is the end of Prime Edition this evening. Thank you very much for keeping us company here on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum, and Lucy Moura is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Do have yourself a lovely night. Bye-bye.
Sahi, ukidial *419# option 4 ama uingie kwa tushinde.com, hakuna probox. Jaribu.
Ni ukweli. Yaani nimeshaingia na ndio tunafyeka. Ya inaona iko ndani. Wanaongelea nini hao? Ni shamba. Na sio moja, sio mbili, shamba 3 hapa Juja. Very nice. Na ni area moja development na growth iko promising sana. Stima iko ndani. Hiyo. Maji inapatikana. Wow. Security iko sawa na all basic amenities zinapatikana. Shamba ni 3 na kuingia kwa draw ili kujishindia moja kati ya shamba hizi 3 ni 35 bob pekee. Na mtu akitaka zote 3, iko special ticket ya kuweza kujishindia shamba zote 3 kwa tikiti moja ya 99 bob pekee. Hata hiyo, na barabara ni nywe mpaka kwa ploti yako, na kila ploti is worth 1.5 million Kenyan shillings. Hii 2026 hatuland tu, tunaland mara 3 na tushinde.com au *419# option 4. Au umesema vizuri sana. Wewe fieka. Na fieka.
Katika Qur'an tukufu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anatuamuru tukumbushane, kwani kukumbushana kunawafaa waumini. Kwa mujibu wa hadithi, Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam anatushauri tueneze ujumbe wake angalau kwa aya moja. Basi tunatia ari kufanya ambacho ni jukumu la